Hello, good evening and welcome to the Spider's Web with your host, me, Bee. Thank you for joining me tonight. I hope you're all well and I hope you're all enjoying these little pockets of sunshine we keep getting. Hopefully that's going to lead to better days and that will be absolutely great. In my video tonight we're going to be exploring the unsettling and mysterious subject of strange disappearances in the UK. Every year hundreds of individuals vanish without a trace, leaving behind only questions and a trail of uncertainty. From the misty mountains of Scotland to the bustling streets of London, the UK is home to a disproportionate number of inexplicable disappearances. But what drives people to vanish? Is it foul play, personal choice, or something more sinister? From the estimated 250,000 people who go missing in the UK each year, to the eerie cases of those who seemingly vanished into thin air, we'll explore the most baffling and intriguing cases that continue to haunt us. So join me as we venture into the unknown and uncover the truth behind the strange disappearances of people in the UK. Sheila was last seen leaving her school at 4 p.m. in Farnworth on the 18th of August 1944, presumably on her way home, where she never arrived. Companions of Sheila claimed to have seen her with a man outside a bakery, where some accounts stated the pair were walking together and others stated she was sitting on the upturned crossbars of a black bicycle he was riding. When queried, she told her friends, "I'm going with him." Sheila's parents reported that she was shy, so she must have known him very well. A 1944 article reporting her missing status described Sheila as having fair hair tied with a pink ribbon, and she was wearing a blue flowered frock, green coat, brown stockings and black shoes. The man seen with Sheila was described as a well-dressed, clean-shaven male of slim build between the ages of 25 and 30 years. The police note for the case also included the following information regarding the man's description: 5'8", long face, sharp features, fresh complexion, clean-shaven, believed dark hair, pointed chin, dressed in dark black suit, collar and tie. While many of the initial leads were unhelpful, one person reported that they saw a girl matching Sheila's description with a man matching the released description, heading from Four Lane Ends down Newbrook Road towards Atherton. Sheila's sister Betty recalled that there was a couple from London or the south of England who about 3 months prior to her disappearance had commented that Sheila was a lovely child and that they would have liked to have taken her with them. Sheila's parents stated that Sheila may have been attempting to meet with friends in London. Family members, greatly affected by the event, long hoped that she was still alive, as police were unable to find her body. Neighbours of the Fox family stated that their hopes later changed to speculations that the girl had been murdered. On the night of her disappearance and the following days, extensive searches for Sheila were conducted in the area by both members of the police force and volunteers. Despite their efforts, police were unable to find any evidence, including the clothing she was wearing, of where she and the man had gone. Newspapers covered the story, though it was soon overshadowed by the events of World War II. On Wednesday the 6th of September 1944, the Manchester Evening Post reported that the police were eager to speak to a man who had been spotted riding his bike with a girl on the crossbars who was wearing a green dress and ribbons in her hair on Newbrook Road, Atherton, at the day and time that Sheila went missing. According to the police, the man was seen in the vicinity of Atherton Parish Church and rode in the direction of Leigh. Searches for Sheila were expanded in 2001 after police were notified by an individual claiming to have witnessed a 20-year-old resident, Richard Ryan, digging late at night in the area around the time she vanished and had long suspected foul play was involved. This tip led to the case being reopened by investigators. The location was fairly close to where she lived. Residents expressed doubts that anything would be found, as earlier maintenance of the city sewers in the area had not unearthed any remains. Ryan was a convicted sex offender, and police excavated the site in the hope of finding Sheila's remains, but nothing of evidentiary value was found. Sheila remains missing to this day. Mary Flanagan was a hard-working 16-year-old girl, having a job at the Tate and Lyle sugar refinery, an occasional job at an optician's, attending school at Holbrook Road Secondary, and also volunteering for the Blind Association. Born on the 9th of June 1943 to Irish Catholic parents, Mary lived in West Ham, London, with her parents, sisters and brother, and was by all accounts a bright, confident and friendly young woman. At the time of her disappearance on New Year's Eve 1959, Mary was 5'2" and of medium build, with wavy brown hair and hazel eyes. Mary was due to attend the staff New Year's party at the Tate and Lyle sugar refinery where she worked. On the 31st of December 1959, at about 1 p.m, she dressed in a checked skirt, red knitted coat and heels, slung a basket over her arm, and gave her family one final wave as she headed to West Ham Tube Station to travel to the party. At this point it was discovered that Mary hadn't attended work for 2 weeks. As recently as 2013, relatives still didn't know what she'd been doing during that period instead. The investigation was largely old-fashioned police work, because it was January the 1st, 1960. DNA and most modern forensics were not yet a possibility. Searches were made of the local area, and there was some coverage in local newspapers, but little came of this. One lead which quickly came to light was Mary's boyfriend, an Irishman in his 20s who worked in the Merchant Navy. Mary's father had introduced the two, and they'd been known to be seeing one another for some time before Mary's disappearance. Unfortunately, he couldn't be found. Indeed, even his name turned out to be a mystery. It was thought to be Tom McGinty, but no Tom McGinty could be found working for the Merchant Navy, and it was considered that his surname could have been something similar but different, like McKenty or McGuinness. As of 2013, Tom McGinty still hadn't been tracked down to be questioned. The thing with Tom was that no one seemed quite sure what he was to Mary. Some say fiancé, though there was no ring. Some say boyfriend, but others say that she was close to breaking up with him. Their last known interaction was a bitter argument. Tom had told Mary that he lived with a landlady, but it turned out he instead lived with his mother. This lie led to an argument, with Mary crying and raised voices between Tom, Mary and Mary's father. Indeed, on the morning of the 31st of December 1959, Mary slept in late, something she didn't typically do. No clues were found in the immediate aftermath, but long-term plans were put into place to look out for Mary. Her national insurance number had a trace placed on it, but it has never been used by anyone working within the UK since. The Salvation Army were also checked with. At some point her case became inactive due to lack of evidence. To coincide with Mary's 70th birthday, her case was officially reopened and re-examined in 2013, bringing new publicity. At this point, Mary's younger sister Brenda, who was 8 at the time of Mary's disappearance, stated that she believed Mary was still alive. She offered the theory that Mary had been pregnant, which for an unmarried Irish Catholic teenage girl in 1959 would have been completely socially unacceptable, and so her and Tom had eloped to escape potential shame. Brenda noted that Mary had kissed all of them goodbye the day she left, suggesting that she knew she wasn't going to come back. In 2013, Brenda's DNA was entered into UK databases so that it could be compared against unidentified remains. Given the passage of time and evolution of forensics, presumably DNA from Mary was wholly unavailable, and so her sister's was the best available. From what is publicly available, there have been no potential matches. There has been no update on Mary's case since 2013, and if she is still alive, she is 80 years old. At around 1:40 p.m. on Tuesday the 8th of April 1969, April left her home at 3 Council Houses, Metton, to visit her sister's house in Roughton. Travelling by bicycle, she had a packet of 10 cigarettes, 5.5 shillings, and a handkerchief in the saddlebag, and was planning to deliver the cigarettes as a birthday present to her brother-in-law. Just after 2 p.m, she was seen cycling along the country road towards Roughton. She was wearing a wine-coloured woolen skirt, a green jumper, a pair of long white socks, and a pair of wooden-soled sandals with red straps and brass buckles. Shortly after leaving home, she met 2 friends at the donkey field next to Harrison's farm on Cromer Road in Metton. After 10 minutes she left, stating she was on her way to her sister's. Just after 2 p.m, an employee at Harrison's farm saw April riding her cycle along Roughton Road, Metton, in the direction of Roughton. This was the last known sighting of April. At around 2:15 p.m, Ordnance Survey workers in a van saw April's bicycle lying in a field on the Metton to Roughton Road, just a few hundred yards from where she was last seen. April had disappeared within a time frame of no longer than 10 minutes. At around 3 p.m. the same day, a local man was driving his mother home when he saw April's bicycle in the field. He took it to the police house at Roughton, where he handed it to the village PC. The cigarettes, money and handkerchief were still in the saddlebag. It became apparent later that evening that April was missing, when her mother realised she never reached her sister's house in Roughton. By the following morning, a full-scale inquiry was underway. A local search was carried out, while inquiries were made with April's family and friends. The inquiry was extremely thorough, with 1,971 statements taken and 419 house-to-house questionnaires completed. April has never been seen since, and a number of potential suspects have been eliminated as the result of the investigation. Sadly, April's mother passed away not knowing what happened to April. Officers are determined to find closure for her remaining family and will continue to seek any new credible and relevant information that could unlock this mystery. Jeanette Louise Tate was born in Taunton, Somerset on the 5th of May 1965. She was the only child born to John and Sheila Tate. At the time of Jeanette's birth, the Tate family lived in the Taunton suburb of Wedlands. They relocated briefly to Cornwall before moving to Devon. Jeanette's parents separated when she was young and her father remarried. She lived with her father, stepmother Violet and stepsister Tanya at Barton Farm Cottage in the East Devon village of Aylesbury, 8 miles east of Exeter. After her parents' separation, Jeanette maintained regular contact with her mother. Jeanette disappeared while delivering newspapers shortly after 3:30 p.m. on Saturday the 19th of August 1978. At approximately 3:28 p.m, 2 school friends saw her walking along Withen Lane, pushing a bicycle. She'd delivered 14 newspapers by this point and conversed briefly with her friends as they ascended the lane. At the top of the hill, she mounted her bicycle and rode ahead, as her friends paused to read an article in the newspaper they'd been given. She would not typically have performed this newspaper round and had agreed to do the job for 1 week, as the paper boy who normally did the round was on holiday. She was wearing a white cotton t-shirt with her name embroidered in red letters on the left shoulder, light brown trousers and white plimsolls. 7 minutes later, the 2 girls discovered her bicycle lying in the middle of the road. Several newspapers she'd been scheduled to deliver were scattered across the tarmac. Approximately 25 minutes after the discovery, Tate's parents returned to Barton Farm Cottage from a shopping trip to Exeter. The girls had Tate's bicycle with them and asked if she was at home. When her father said that his daughter was not at home, he and her mother, assisted by several friends and neighbours, began a search around Withen Lane for Tate. At 5 p.m, John Tate reported his daughter missing to Devon and Cornwall Police. Within hours of Jeanette's disappearance, police mounted an extensive search. 70 uniformed policemen, with 50 detectives from Devon and Cornwall Police, assisted by mounted officers from Avon and Somerset Police, were assigned to the search. All ponds in the Aylesbury area were searched by underwater search units, and search dogs assisted police in their search of surrounding terrain. Devon and Cornwall Police discounted the possibility of Jeanette running away from home, as at the time of her disappearance she had no personal possessions with her, beyond the clothing she was wearing. She had also left behind in her bedroom money she'd been saving for an upcoming family holiday. The money collected from the customers on her newspaper round was still in her purse on the bicycle. The possibility of a hit-and-run traffic accident was also ruled out, as no tyre marks were found on the road and her bicycle was undamaged. Kidnapping was initially considered a possibility, although Devon and Cornwall Police and Tate's family gradually discounted this possibility. Eyewitnesses reported seeing a maroon Triumph or similar vehicle upon Within Road at around the time of the disappearance, and police issued a photo-fit picture of a man they wanted to question in relation to the incident. This man was described as being a very handsome individual, in his early 20s with a pale complexion, short dark hair, and who had been wearing a light-coloured shirt. Despite the police investigation and a search of the surrounding countryside involving thousands of volunteers, Jeanette's disappearance remains unexplained. In 2002, DNA belonging to Jeanette was found on one of her jumpers kept by her mother, which would allow her body to be identified if discovered. On the 25th anniversary of the case in 2003, Jeanette's parents both stated their belief that she is no longer alive. Police have amassed more than 20,000 index cards in a filing system related to the case, which is stored at the Devon and Cornwall Police Headquarters in Exeter. To this day, Jeanette's body has not been found, and the cause of her disappearance remains unknown. Kevin went missing in 1986 while walking home from the local shop in Addiscombe, Croydon. He has never been seen since, and in 2016, the Metropolitan Police said they believed he had been murdered. Kevin was described as a happy teenager with no problems at school. He'd been applying for jobs in the weeks before his disappearance. On March the 2nd, he spent a normal day with his family at their home in Sissinghurst Road, Addiscombe. At around 8:30 p.m, he told his mum he needed to buy some eggs for his O-level home economics exam the next day. He left with £1 and headed off to Sperring's community shop, a couple of minutes' walk away in Lower Addiscombe Road. Kevin was last seen by someone who knew him at 10 p.m. in Shirley Road, walking in the general direction of home. He was never seen again, and his parents, Derek and Terry, died without knowing what had happened to their son. By 2016, his only surviving relative was his sister, Alexandra Hicks, living in Sutton. She said, "Christmas is always a particularly hard time of the year, especially now both my parents are gone. It would be the best Christmas present to have Kevin back or to know what had happened to him. With Kevin and I being only a year and a day apart with our birthdays, the month of February is a constant reminder of not knowing where he is or what has happened to him." On the 2nd of March 2017, it was 31 years since Kevin went missing, and I appeal to anyone with any information, no matter how small, to come forward and assist police with their investigation. Someone somewhere knows something. It's time to let go of that secret. On the morning of Saturday the 10th of September 1988, Lee Boxall left his home in Cheam, in the London Borough of Sutton, to meet a friend at 11 a.m. in the nearby town of Sutton. Lee and his friend spent a couple of hours window shopping and parted company at 1 p.m. When he was leaving, Lee said he might go to Selhurst Park Football Stadium to watch a match between Charlton Athletic FC and Millwall FC. Despite extensive appeals on both the BBC's Crime Watch and at Selhurst Park and other football stadiums, no one has come forward with any confirmed sightings of Lee at any of the football grounds in the area. A witness did come forward, however, to say that they had spotted him outside a Tesco location on Sutton High Street at 2:20 p.m. This meant it was unlikely that he would have made it to any of the football grounds in the area in time for a 3 p.m. kick-off. A further witness in 2012 stated that Lee attended an unofficial youth club in the annex of St Dunstan's Church in Cheam, known as The Shed, which was previously unknown to the police. Following extensive inquiries, the police found out that paedophiles were operating in the area at the time Lee disappeared. In 2013, to coincide with what would have been Lee's 40th birthday, Crime Watch featured another appeal for information, working on the new theory that Lee attended The Shed on the day he disappeared. Following this appeal, there was an allegation of sexual abuse, never before reported, and police began working on the theory that Lee may have died after intervening to try and stop sexual abuse at a youth club in Cheam. In 2018, a Scotland Yard spokesman confirmed that cold case detectives had interviewed a potential witness and new information was being investigated that could lead to Lee's remains being found. The following year, Lee was featured in a missing person campaign promoted by Italian football club AS Roma. As of 2025, Lee's remains have never been found. Ruth lived with her father Ian, stepmother Karen, who were both teachers, and younger sister Jenny, in a cottage in Betchworth, Surrey, at the time of her disappearance. As well as being head of science at a secondary school, Ian was also a local parish councillor. Ruth enjoyed reading, going on bike rides and music. She played the electric guitar and piano. She also had a Saturday job working in a music shop and was a popular local babysitter. She was studying for her A-levels at the Ashcombe School, sixth form, when she disappeared. She attended her local church, St Michael's, and was a member of the choir, played the organ and enjoyed bell ringing. She was described by school friends as having an intelligent and quirky personality, with a small but close-knit group of friends. Ruth's friend Catherine was due to move to Sheffield, and Ruth had asked if she could come with her once she was settled. Ruth went missing a few weeks after Catherine moved. Catherine's mother recalled that Ruth had slept over not long before she disappeared and had been adamant that she did not want to go back home. Ruth did not explain why. Catherine has stated that Ruth had talked about running away. Ian and Karen have disputed claims that her home life was unhappy. Friends and family have also agreed. 2 days before her disappearance, Ruth worked her usual job in a music shop in Dorking, then went for a meal with her ex-boyfriend Will Kennedy, with whom she still maintained a good friendship, and another friend, Neil Phillipson. Kennedy and Phillipson both stated that Ruth paid for the meal. On the day before she disappeared, Ruth went for handbell practice at the local church, then went to a youth group in Dorking, then back to Kennedy's for supper. His mother gave her some old clothing, and her family remembered her being relaxed. Ruth's father and stepmother left early for work on the day of her disappearance, leaving Ruth and Jenny to catch the school bus. Ruth's father had an Ofsted inspection at the school where he worked as the head of science, and was in a hurry to leave. He recalled that he last saw Ruth listening to her Walkman as he left the home, and he'd been in a stressful mood. His last words to her were, "Get out of my way, I'm in a hurry," as he pushed past her. At the last moment, Ruth told Jenny that she was not going with her on the bus. Jenny was not surprised, as Ruth was in the sixth form and did not always come in for the whole day, though she was surprised that her sister left it so late to tell her before the arrival of the bus. Shortly after Jenny left for school, Kennedy appeared with his car and offered Ruth a lift. She declined, saying she would meet up later. She did not attend school at all that day, something her family and peers considered uncharacteristic. At around 11:30 a.m, Ruth took a taxi into Dorking. Around midday she ordered flowers for her stepmother from Thistle's Florists on Dorking High Street. Ruth asked that they not be delivered until the following Wednesday. Ruth spent the afternoon in Dorking Library. At around 4 p.m. she took a taxi from Dorking railway station to Box Hill. She was dropped off on a bridle way, a short way from the Hand in Hand pub, which is now the Box Tree, on Box Hill. The taxi driver stated that Ruth displayed unusual behaviour in that she simply stood still in the rain as he drove off. This was notable as the taxi driver observed that people typically walk away after they've been dropped off. In other reports, the taxi driver stated that Ruth appeared to be looking around for someone. The taxi driver was the last person to see her at 4:30 p.m. At the time of her disappearance, Ruth was wearing a red knitted jumper, black velvet trousers, black pixie boots and a small lady's watch on her left wrist. She had a small blue duffel bag with a personal stereo and tapes. Liam Macaulay, a 58-year-old retired police officer investigating the disappearance, observed that Ruth was dressed to get into another car, or was standing still to wait for the taxi driver to leave, so he didn't see where she was going to go, implying that a third party may have been involved, and running away seemed likely. Ruth's family became concerned when she didn't return home that evening, and they had discovered from her school that she had not attended classes that day. They telephoned the police and, using information from the taxi driver who dropped Ruth on Box Hill, reported fairly early on, local police officers conducted a search of the immediate area. That night, Surrey Police organised a more extensive search for Ruth with a helicopter, police dogs and heat-seeking equipment. They searched the Box Hill area but found no solid clue as to her whereabouts. It was subsequently discovered that she frequently went to Box Hill after school. She was also concerned about her performance at school and had kept a school report from her father and stepmother that weekend. On the 1st of December, as reported in the Times newspaper, police found 3 notes hidden under a bush in the undergrowth at the top of Betchworth Quarry on Box Hill. The notes amounted to farewells to her father, stepmother, her best friend and a teenage boy she knew. Nearby were found empty packets of paracetamol tablets and a half-empty bottle of vermouth. On the 2nd of December, a large-scale search was organised by the police and fire and rescue services, involving 60 volunteers, including local community members, school friends, colleagues and National Trust wardens. The search utilised a police helicopter, tracker dogs and thermal imaging equipment. A detailed search of the Betchworth Quarry end of Box Hill was undertaken by a trained search and rescue team, along with employees of the owners of the quarry, Nionile Limited. Mark Williams-Thomas, who was the family liaison officer for Wilson's case, stated that extensive searches across Box Hill had yielded no evidence to suggest that she was killed or took her own life. He also stated that he was sure Wilson was not abducted by a stranger. Williams-Thomas said that from the experience I have had, I would suggest one of 2 things occurred. She either went up there to meet someone and has subsequently gone away, or she went there and died in some way. The police assigned the code name Operation Scholar to the case. The unsolved missing persons case is reviewed on a regular basis and is being led by DCI Alex Geldert. Surrey Police have stated that the investigation will be reopened if any new evidence or lines of inquiry came to light. The Gosden family lives in Balby, a suburb of Doncaster, South Yorkshire. Andrew Gosden's parents are both committed Anglican Christians, but had not baptised their children as they did not want to impose their views on them. Prior to his disappearance, Andrew had not been to church for 18 months. He'd been a Cub Scout, but a few months before his disappearance, he told his father that he would no longer involve himself with the group. Gosden's family described him as a home bird, who rarely left the house and never without saying where he was going, Andrew was known to his family as Roo. He was a gifted student with a 100% attendance record at the Macaulay Catholic High School. He was on the Young Gifted and Talented programme, which was designed to enhance the educational development of the top 5% of school pupils. He was expected to score straight A's in his GCSE examinations. Andrew was described as a prize-winning mathematician who seemed destined for Cambridge. He was described as having a neutral attitude about school. During the 2006 summer holidays, Andrew attended a 2-week residential school at Lancaster University as part of the Young Gifted and Talented programme. The summer school was for children from all over the UK, aged 11 to 16, who were in the top 5% academically. Andrew's parents recalled that he returned from the summer school enthused about what he had been doing. He was described as being happy with his own company, but he was not a loner as he had his small group of like-minded friends. However, his family say that he did not socialise with his friends outside of school. He exhibited no signs of depression, and there were no indications that he had been subjected to bullying. He was said by his father to be absent-minded, not streetwise, and potentially vulnerable. He was a deep character who did not get worked up or moody. His teachers characterised him as a shy, quiet young man who was mature beyond his years. Other sources have stated that although he was aged 14 when he disappeared, he looked younger, perhaps about 12, as he was small for his age. He wore strong prescription glasses, is deaf in his left ear, and has a distinctive double ridge on his right ear. He had light brown hair but was planning to dye it black before he disappeared. He owned a couple of mobile phones between the ages of 10 and 12, but he rarely used them and subsequently lost them. He was given a new phone for his 12th birthday, but also rarely used this and did not want to replace it when he lost it months before his disappearance. When his parents offered to replace the lost phones, he stated that he would prefer a new Xbox. He was interested in video games and metal bands. He was last seen wearing a black Slipknot t-shirt, black jeans, trainers, a watch on his left wrist, and was carrying a black canvas satchel with patches of rock and metal bands on it. During the 2007 school summer holidays, typically July to September, Andrew's parents had suggested that he travel alone to London to stay with his grandmother, but he chose not to go. At the time of his disappearance, he was 8 days into the new school year after returning from the summer holidays. In the days leading up to his disappearance, Andrew twice chose to break his normal routine. His parents reported that he told them he walked home from school rather than taking the school bus. Walking the 4-mile route from school to his home would have taken around 1 hour and 20 minutes. The evening before the day of the disappearance was described by Andrew's father as uneventful. The family ate together as usual, and they all washed the dishes afterwards. He then watched some comedy programmes on television, including Mock the Week and That Mitchell and Webb Look with his mother. On the morning of his disappearance, Andrew had difficulty waking up and seemed particularly irritable. His mother stated that this was unusual as he was normally awake on time. At 8:05 in the morning, he left his house and was witnessed walking across the local park to his usual bus stop by family friend Reverend Alan Murray, who was sitting on a bench in the park. Instead of taking the school bus, Andrew diverted from his usual route and walked to a cash machine at a local garage, where he withdrew £200 from his bank account. Although Andrew had £214 in his account, the ATM would only allow withdrawals in £20 increments, limiting him to £200. Andrew was captured on a neighbour's CCTV system returning home. At home, Andrew placed his uniform in the washing machine and his blazer on the back of his chair. He changed into casual clothes. He also took his wallet, keys and a PSP console. No other possessions were identified as missing. It was quickly established that he had not taken his passport with him. Andrew's father stated that his son did not appear to have taken a sweatshirt or a coat with him and had also not taken the charger for his PSP. He also left around £100 in cash that he had saved from birthdays. At 8:30 a.m, Andrew departed the house and was seen heading down Littlemore Lane towards Westfield Park on a neighbour's CCTV. He then walked to Doncaster railway station and purchased a one-way ticket to London, which cost £31.40. The ticket seller recalled that she had told Andrew that a return ticket cost just 50p more, but he insisted on a single ticket. At 9:35am, Andrew was seen boarding the train to King's Cross station alone. A woman reported sitting next to him, and she described him as being quiet and engrossed in playing his video game. When Andrew failed to attend morning lessons at his school, his teachers tried to contact his parents. The school believed they had called Andrew's parents and left a message informing them that he had not attended school. However, the school dialed the wrong number of the parents either above or below Andrew in the register, and the message was left on the wrong person's phone. Andrew arrived at King's Cross station at 11:20am. He was captured on CCTV leaving the main entrance of the station at 11:25, and this was the last confirmed sighting of him. That evening, Andrew's family and a family friend sat down for dinner, thinking that Andrew was either in the converted cellar playing video games or in his room doing homework. When they discovered he was not in the house, they initially thought he could be with a friend or a neighbour and had lost track of time. Andrew's parents telephoned his friends, who informed them that Andrew was not there and had not been at school that day. At around 7pm, the police were called. Andrew's sister Charlotte stated, "It was just a complete panic. We initially thought something must have happened on the way to school. When we found that he hadn't even been to school, even tried to go to school, that was even more worrying." Charlotte and Andrew's father Kevin scouted Andrew's route to school and areas nearby but found nothing. Within 3 hours of discovering Andrew's disappearance, a missing person leaflet was produced for circulation. Andrew's family and friends searched the area until nightfall. That weekend, the police searched bushes near Andrew's home in Doncaster but found nothing. 3 days later, after speaking to the woman who had sold Andrew his train ticket, the police confirmed that he had travelled to London. The ticket seller at Doncaster station remembered Andrew because he had refused a return ticket, despite it only costing a small amount more than a single. Andrew's father later stated that the purchase of a single ticket, rather than a return, did not seem strange to him, as Andrew knew numerous people in London with whom he could have stayed. Initial searches in London focused on the Chislehurst and Sidcup areas, where the family has relatives. Days after the disappearance, the family travelled to London and handed out flyers and posters in the vicinity of anywhere they felt Andrew would have had an interest in visiting, especially museums and exhibitions. South Yorkshire Police said it asked British Transport Police to search the CCTV footage within 2 days of Andrew going missing, but British Transport Police could not pick him out from the crowds. 3 weeks later, CCTV footage at King's Cross was again reviewed by British Transport Police and South Yorkshire Police, who identified Andrew. The CCTV image of Andrew leaving the main concourse at King's Cross was circulated in the media, accompanied by a close-up of his right ear, which has a distinctive double ridge. The family and the police investigated the possibility that Andrew had gone to London to meet someone who he had met over the internet. However, there was no evidence for this. Andrew did not use a computer at home. His father stated that Andrew did not have an email address and had not set up an online account either on his Xbox or his PSP. The police took the computers from Andrew's school and Doncaster Library, but their digital forensic investigations found no trace of any activity by Andrew. Investigators sent the unique serial number of Andrew's PSP to Sony HQ, who found that there was no record of an account being set up or communication established on the device. The Sony PSP 1000 had a DNAS authentication system, allowing Sony to see when a PSP had connected to the internet. The only PC in the house was his sister's laptop, which had only been in her possession for 8 weeks. Andrew's sister has stated that he did not seem interested in social media or connecting with other people through the internet, as he just didn't seem social. A year after Andrew's disappearance, the head teacher at Macaulay Catholic High School, Mary Lawrence, travelled to London with staff and pupils and distributed 15,000 leaflets. After the initial CCTV trail went cold, the investigation moved on to trying to establish why Andrew had decided to go to London. An early theory put forward by the family was that Andrew had decided to go sightseeing. He was known to have enjoyed London and would visit the capital with his family to see his grandparents, aunts, uncles and family friends who lived there. He also enjoyed visiting London's museums and exhibitions. Travel on buses was free for children at the time of Andrew's disappearance. His sister travelled to London to hand out CVs when she was 14 to gain work experience, and Andrew's father speculated that he may have been doing the same. One event identified by Kevin Gosden as a possible reason for his son to have travelled to London was the 2007 YouTube gathering. However, there's no evidence that Andrew attended this event or had any interest in YouTube. There have been several unconfirmed sightings of Andrew since his disappearance, but these have led to nothing. 2 men, arrested as suspects in the case, were interviewed and subsequently released due to lack of evidence. Experts in the field have used technology to provide images to calculate age progression. This is to show how Andrew would possibly look today, assuming he's still alive. Speaking in 2009, Kevin Gosden speculated on the reason for Andrew's disappearance. Did he decide to do the Reginald Perrin thing and reinvent himself? Or was there something troubling him that he felt he couldn't tell us? In my heart, I still think his disappearance was a spur-of-the-moment thing. Missing People is a fantastic organisation and resource. It provides a confidential service for missing people who don't want to be found but want to let their families know that they're okay. And it also provides families the ability to appeal for missing loved ones to get in touch. So if anyone has any information on the cases featured in this evening's video, no matter how small, please call the number on the screen. Thank you. And that brings us to the end of tonight's video. Thank you all for watching. I think with this subject, it's going to be a 2-parter this, I've decided, because I have a list of UK disappearances. But I think the more we keep it out there, the more chance there is of finding answers, however small, whatever the chance, it's a chance. So take care everybody, look after yourselves and each other, and I shall see you in the next video. But until then, don't forget, stay spooky.